Hi, everyone. Welcome back inside another edition of our Wednesday with the Flames. My name is Alan York, your host. So delighted to be with you on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. Special guest here today is baseball coach Scott Jackson. And, Coach, we'll get right into things. How are things around the baseball office and managing through the COVID-19 the last 6 or 7 weeks? I know there's a lot to dive into, but just from a 40,000-foot view, how's the team holding up?
They're great. The kids they're pretty resilient and they find a way to. I think the biggest thing is just getting in a new routine. And Brett Nethry, our strength coach, is around. Dan Prusser, we've got a couple guys that are through the stadium with some rehab, and they're able to lift in two groups, less than 10. So we've got about 19 kids that are still here in town, which is great. And if anything, I get to see their faces now and again, so it's a good thing.
Beautiful backdrop here with Liberty Baseball Stadium, Worthington Field right behind you. You mentioned the groups, no more than 10 getting together. Are they able to do some skill work as well? Again, all of this, important to note, it's all voluntary. Nothing is required. But how are they able to, from a skill standpoint, keep up with kind of what they gained through the first couple of weeks of the season?
Yeah, I mean, really, the hard part is if you got out here on the field to start training, like what's your target? What are you training for? I think just trying to stay in the flow of, hey, I'm going to just see some balls off the machine, take some swings, pitchers, revamping everything. Okay, so now we've got a chance to rest a little bit. Summer ball doesn't look like it's going to be a possibility at this point. So, it's activity, but I guess the intensity of it with, hey, I know I've got this date to be ready for. That's not part of it. So they're here, they're moving around, they're swinging the bat some, and playing catch. I just watched Evan Braybrand, who's around here, looking to throw a little bit if the minor leaguers get back down to spring training. So there's been some guys moving around a little bit out here, but obviously nothing formal and nothing that you can really set a schedule with.
Has anything in your career, Scott, prepared you for you're in the bus heading to Columbus, Ohio to play the Buckeyes, and you get a call, some stuff is developing? Again, you've had conversations with the media, and I don't know if any of it's therapeutic to still talk about it, but what prepares you in life to have that conversation with your student athletes and your staff of, okay, things are on hold, we have to find out what's going on. Again, it's a couple months removed from that almost, but what prepares a coach for conversations like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you have some tough conversations, maybe one-on-one with some kids. Sometimes playing time, sometimes injuries, sometimes some things that are, for lack of a better word, maybe devastating at that point in their young lives. But to address your whole team, I don't think. I think the way you talk to your players and the way you talk about things, whether it's a bad loss or some low points in your season, that's one thing. But telling them the season's over with, it's hard to say anything's really prepared me for that. To stand up in front of the bus and tell everybody, hey, we're done. We talk a lot in our program about enjoying our time together and making sure our practices are about being with each other and enjoying those moments. And you're never going to get back. I remember my first year here, we had a bunch of seniors. We had like 13 seniors on the team, and we talked often during that year about, hey, just enjoy this time together, because that same group of kids, that exact same group of kids is never going to be together again. And so when you hit on that, I think at times during the season, it kind of allows you to maybe reel in some of that moment, like, hey, we've got 5 hours on the bus here. We don't know what we're going to have next. Enjoy this time together. Thankfully, we had another practice before our season was canceled, so that was fun. We let the pitchers hit. We goofed around. You just kind of looked out there, and there was, Trey McDyer and Ben Highfill having a conversation out there, and you just kind of wondered what they were talking about, and how hard it must be, and they handled it well, and it's something that I guess we got through it. But I never hope I have to do that again.
Liberty baseball coach Scott Jackson joins us here today for a Wednesday with the Flames. Today's broadcast brought to you by our good friends at Carter Bank and Trust, the home of lifetime free checking. And you look at this season and the strides that were being made through the preseason and the non-conference, I don't think many coaches live in a what if, because what has happened is already gone. But are there some things this season that, man, I wish I could have seen this develop within our team, and now it won't. And you may not have time to think about that because you're looking ahead to 2021. But are there a couple of things that maybe stick out to you that would have been cool to see how this developed with our team?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that jumps out is, okay, once we got back to full strength with Will Wagner at second base, our lineup, we struggled at times to score runs. It was a little different at times. It was kind of trying to be a little more creative offensively, maybe searching for that identity a little bit. Once we had some challenges on the road, which we did win a road game. Getting Will back, how was this team going to evolve into, was there going to be a moment on the road, a weekend series, a big game on the road that got us over the hump? Was there a change in the lineup similar to maybe last year? We put Gray Betts in that leadoff spot. That's the fun of a season, is what it brings you. It brings you like, okay, you're going to have to figure this out, not just as a group of kids, but certainly as a coaching staff. And that's the fun of coaching, is to watch kids fail or watch kids struggle, and then, okay, how are we going to get through this together? I thought our pitching was outstanding. I mean, they did such a good job of keeping us in games, and Mason Hand kind of had this trajectory of moving, in a really good direction. Joe Adamets was coming off probably the best outing of his young career. Does he really start to emerge? Mason Meyer was really pitching well without his best stuff. So you think all those things, like, man, where would we have ended up? Where would this thing have gone? What would it have been like once we got into conference play? Where were we going to finish? All the things that are the fun part of the season of looking back on it and saying, man, look at the growth of these guys. We don't get to do that. So we'll look forward to the fall, and hopefully those guys can take some of that, confidence or wherever they were with them.
Scott, a couple of weeks ago, NCAA approved the legislature to allow, and they talk about the graduating seniors from 2020 coming back, but essentially, isn't it a redshirt year for everybody on the roster, or not?
Yeah, it's just basically like the season didn't happen, so you get that year back. So it's really kind of taking my depth chart and how you play things out. The next year, just it's a lot of what ifs. Are we going to get Brady Gulikowski for 2 more years after this one? Are we gonna get Joe Adamets for 2 more years after this one? Mason Meyer, it really forces you to step back and really look at the depth of that roster, especially from a recruiting standpoint, and really take a close look at how things are going to shake out moving forward. It's the biggest challenge we have as baseball coaches is we have limitations. So 27 on scholarship, 35 on the roster. Obviously, commitments in future recruiting classes, and how is this thing going to play out, and how long is this effect of the COVID-19 shutdown going to affect the roster?
I know we've talked a lot about the leadership Ian McCaw brings to the athletics department. How has his communication with your staff evolved since having to have that conversation with your team on that bus going to Columbus, and keeping you involved with the developments of, hey, this is what's coming next, and how have you connected those dots with your team?
Yeah, well, I think the best trait you can have as a leader is you're a really good listener. I think that's Ian's best trait. I think he's just a phenomenal listener. The conversations you have with him are very direct. They're very precise. They're very, open. And when you can call your athletic director and say, hey, this is what I'm hearing, what are you hearing? And not only is he a good listener, he makes himself available. And so those are some things that, through this, you really start to appreciate, what you have. Mickey Garitti's the same way, just a phenomenal listener, and the availability of those guys. That's what we need as coaches. That's so reassuring, is, hey, it's going to be okay. Here's what I'm hearing. This is what, we would do moving forward, and what you need to think about moving forward. That's been a climate and an environment here that I've never experienced in my coaching career. And man, I'm thankful for it.
Absolutely. Echo those sentiments 100%. And when you look at the future, Scott, again, we're kind of in a holding pattern as we wait the pandemic to flatten out, if you will. And I've talked to a number of coaches on these calls about, okay, when restrictions are lifted, what is next? Can you give us July 1st, August? I mean, depending upon when these restrictions are lifted, what could be next? I know the draft has been talked about. Is there going to be a draft? What's going to happen with that? And from a Liberty, again, huge variables to this, but from a Liberty baseball perspective, here are the players that we have. Let's say July 1st, hypothetical. Restrictions lifted. What happens next as you plan out for 2021?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. And that's something that I think from the outside looking in, a lot of people are wondering that. For us, typically the summer involves going out and playing summer baseball, especially for our position players, get the batter's box more and play. Just go out and play. That's helped, Will, that's helped Jalen, that's helped so many guys in our program, with their development. The pitching side of it's a little bit different because some of our guys need to go out and throw because they didn't throw much in the spring. And then there's the health part of keeping some guys shut down and allowing them to get more mobility, a stronger, bigger, faster, the things that, really are going to help with their performance. Where we are right now, the Cape is done. The New England Collegiate League is done. There's a few leagues out there that are still saying they may play. What I've encouraged our guys to do is if your league's already been canceled, hey, let's formulate a plan for you to get back here on campus and be with Brett Nethry, our strength coach. He's made such a big difference in so many kids in that transition time. Guys like Evan Braybrand, Joe Adamets last year, just some of the guys that came in here and dedicated their summer to, improving their body, improving parts of what maybe their weaknesses were, and closing the gap there so that they could get better for us. So I think we're going to have a big group of kids here on campus taking a class or two, getting closer to their degree. The best part about baseball is that we don't play again until February of 2021. So it's not going to be a pressing, hey, we've got to rush to get everybody in here. We took our deep breath and now we can sit back and focus on, okay, what's next? There's nothing to rush for. And let's really be as productive as we possibly can during that summer month or month and a half. And for me, that's improving the physical shape you're in and getting closer to that degree. Those two things, if you can do that, then we have a productive summer, regardless of what's going to happen around the country with summer ball.
You mentioned 2021, Scott. Again, schedule comes out when it does, and ahead of time some of the series are going to be played. With this kind of downtime we've had, is the schedule done, and did it get done quicker if it is done because of the time we've had off?
Yeah, well, I'm done all the way through 22. So, the schedules are done so many years out. And thankfully, we had one team cancel a home weekend just because of budget cuts at their school. Thankfully, another school, reached right out to fill in. So that's been the only recent change. We have an unbelievably tough schedule in 21. So I'm hoping that it holds up just because I love to play some really good competition. We're going to go to TCU for 3. We're going to go to Michigan for a weekend series. They were just, the national runner-up last year or in 19. And then we've got 10 ACC midweek games, 5 at home, 5 on the road. So obviously, when 5 ACC teams are willing to come to Worthington Field like they did in 19, we want that to continue to hold up and materialize into reality for our players. So, I couldn't be more excited. I wish we could practice and get going, but, there's time that we need as a country to be able to kind of slow down and get through this the right way. Thankfully, like I said, we don't play this.
Liberty baseball coach Scott Jackson joins us on our Wednesday with the Flames. My name is Alan York. I love going through coaches' offices, Scott, to look at the memorabilia, the mementos of their career. And walking through yours, it's like Rosenblatt has been transported into Lynchburg with your time with the Tar Heels. Is there one piece of memorabilia behind you that means more than something else, maybe? It might be a picture, might be something else. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a picture. There's a picture behind me here of Mike Fox and Mark Scaff, and it was taken last year, right before the regional started. So we were selected to go to the Chapel Hill Regional, and the first thing that came, there was a lot of thoughts that came into my mind, but one of them, soon after that announcement was that I get to go to a regional with my team for the first time ever, and probably the two biggest mentors in my coaching career are going to be there with their teams as well. And that was really special for me. I remember going when you go to the NCAA tournament, you always have a meeting the night before the tournament starts, and to sit down in that meeting and to just look across at those two guys and think, is this really happening? Was just just an unbelievable moment for me. And then we went out on the field and took that picture. And Coach Scaff has retired, and that was his last season. And it's just it's something in my career that I'll never forget it. And that's from a career standpoint the one that means the most. There's pictures of Ryan and Tyler and Sarah, from Omaha in 2011 and 2009, and it's some things that I'll never forget. Those are fun times.
You see a lot of teams. I know some teams will put Omaha on their caps, and there's even mentions of Omaha within the tunnel leading to your dugout. And you look at what Coastal did back in 2015.
Yep.
Mid-majors can do it. And how often do you talk about? I guess first off, do you plant seeds like that? Are those? I don't want to say if you don't dream them, you're not going to get there. But how do you go about day to day with your team and dreaming of what can be for Liberty baseball?
Yeah, I mean, we just talk a lot about like that championship culture, like how you do anything is how you do everything. And so I think, when you get to the moment of, okay, we went to a region, we got back to a regional via a conference championship. I love that. That's a special way to do it because you've really earned and you've really attained something. Not that that's different, than an at-large bid. They're both great. But when you can, okay, we've won a championship. We've come out of the losers bracket. We know how to do that. I think you start to build traits and you build things to always step on and move to the next one, or a foundation to always hold on to with the guys that are in your program. And so last year we went to that regional and won a conference championship, and Evan Brabrand was the only player in our program that had been to the postseason. So you show up at the postseason and you beat Tennessee, and then you lose to North Carolina, and then you lose a heartbreaker to Tennessee, and the pain of that, and oh man, that's not how we had this thing drawn up. That should burn a little bit, and it should stay with you, and it should give you again more of that foundation to grasp. So once you feel that and once you see that, then you have guys in your program that they've always got something to go back to, and we do as a program to say, hey, for us to take the next step, these are things we have to do better. For example, if it's always magnified. I remember Coach Fox at North Carolina. Things were always, if the on deck hitter didn't run up to home plate on a base hit and tell a runner to slide in a certain direction, there were always things that he talked about. There was a ball up the middle when he was in the World Series with Division III North Carolina Wesleyan that the shortstop and the second baseman didn't communicate on, and it trickles into center field as a routine ground ball that either one of them could have gotten to. Those plays, you talk about them all the time because they came up in big situations. For us last year in a regional, we didn't get it done with a runner at third, less than 2 outs. So we talk about that a lot. Hey, put yourself in that moment, as hard as it is to do when the stadium's empty and nobody's here. You just start to layer those things. They know Omaha is where we're trying to go. They know that. But for me, it's just such an everyday process of, if you can do this, that opportunity becomes even closer to being a reality for you. And you just try to layer that, and you get as many layers as you can. And I think that's the formula for getting there.
Scott, I'm always intrigued also with how, and it's so true, what the fans see are when the lights are on, the video boards are working, and the umpire says play ball. But the work that goes in behind the scenes, case in point, I went to a practice pre-February, and you were spending 20, 30 minutes on communication on just defense. and you had Jalen at first, runner at third, one out, and you make them work and you make them think about what to do. What do you enjoy about the nuances of baseball and educating student athletes on, hey, here's what you did. This is an example of what you did. Okay. And you stop, you said, that was good, but think about this.
Yeah.
What do you enjoy about that part of educating players on making the game better?
I enjoy, we talk about this a lot, like especially when the freshmen get here and they've all waited and now fall practice starts. The best thing you can do in practice is to make a mistake trying to do something aggressive, whether it's on the bases or whether it's swinging the bat or whether it's trying to make a throw or trying to make a play. Like, embrace the mistakes in practice and be able to look at kids and smile at them when they screw up and say, hey, now you see, it's one thing to sit there and talk about it, but when you go through all that so many times in practice, and I mean, we just try to create as many situations as we possibly can. Okay. So, my job is to put you in a situation where once the game starts, I'll facilitate some decisions that have to be made, but you have the freedom to go play, because there's nothing that you're going to encounter in a game that we haven't discussed or we haven't put into the formula for here's how we're going to do it if this happens. So a tandem relay, a first and third play on the bases, a first and third play defending it defensively, a bunt defense, trying to put things and decisions in there. We have bunt defenses and we have first and third defense situations where we have a sign for here's what we want you to do. And we try to take all the responsibility off the players and put it on us as coaches and say, hey, if I tell you this is what I want you to do in this situation, let's narrow the focus and let's get that part of it done and limit the damage. And that's the part I enjoy the most. And then you watch them play and we execute a big tandem relay, or we do something with a runner at third and less than 2 outs, and it decides the game, or a base running decision that decides the game, and you get to walk in that locker room, and it's the best feeling ever to just watch your guys realize, hey, that's why we do that every single day, and it matters.
Liberty Baseball coach Scott Jackson joins us on our Wednesday with the Flames. Today's episode brought to you by our good friends at Foster Fuels. We got about 8 or 9 minutes left, Scott, and if any fan has a question for Coach, you can submit it in our Q&A section on your screen. For prospective student athletes, and I know there's compliance rules of when you can contact said prospects and things like that. So if somebody's watching this when we archive it and they want to know more about Liberty Baseball and kind of how you're doing recruiting now within the restrictions that the whole country has, what are you telling them? What advice do you have for them? And how does recruiting move on now, given the time that we're living in?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty for all of us. There's uncertainty on our side as well. Okay, when are they going to lift the dead period? And is it going to happen, June the 1st? Is there going to be anything to go see? What kind of tournaments are we, talking about? Is it going to be condensed a little bit? Are we going to have to really be narrowed with our focus on which events to go to, because everything's going to maybe be condensed into a short period of time? Those are all things that we've discussed, as a staff. If we have a prospect who's interested in our program, the best recruiting tool for us is our camps. And so camps are, we've got 3 this summer that are scheduled. They're right now, they're after the June the 10th period that Governor Northam has put out there. So we feel comfortable that we'll be able to do that. So we would encourage kids, if they're comfortable, to, from a travel standpoint, and then, obviously, lodging here in town, some things that go with that. If you're comfortable with that, that's our best way to recruit, is to interact with you on the field. When you're on our campus and you're an underclassman, meaning July or September 1st of your junior year hasn't hit yet, this is the only way we can have any interaction with you and be able to talk to you and be able to get to know you, is if you come to our camps. Otherwise, if you come on our campus as it stands right now, we can't even speak to you. We can't give you a campus tour. We can't have any interaction. So for us, that's a great tool. The camps are wonderful, and where things are going to go, what the fall is going to look like. I have a feeling we're going to be really, really busy as a coaching staff from about July the 1st until probably November the 1st.
Got a question that came in here, and I don't know if you want to divulge. It's talking about recruiting and recruiting for 2021. And I don't know, from a scholarship standpoint, it's different in baseball, but how many spots are open for 2021? And I guess recruiting in general for your program, how that's going.
Yeah, it's going good. I mean, we've gotten a couple graduate transfers that were in the transfer portal, which is great. They'll give us some older depth, with our roster and some guys that can come in here and do some things. As far as 2021 and how that's going to look, that's a great question. If I had a crystal ball with the Major League Baseball draft here in about a month, and then Major League Baseball draft, as we move forward, the next year, it's going to be a challenge. Our 21 roster is going to be a lot of familiar faces, and we're going to add, I think some good young high school upside arms. We've got some guys that have signed to come in here that are I'm really excited about to give us some more depth on the mound. So our rosters, we didn't have a mess here. We didn't over recruit with our recruiting class, so it's not like we're going to have 45 players and we've got some really tough decisions to make. We've managed the numbers really, really well. Been very fortunate with that. So I'm looking forward to that core group of kids that were part of that regional team being back here, and then certainly the guys that are able to come in and hopefully make it really tough on some of those older guys to get some innings and get some at bats.
Is there an email address, generic one that y'all, if you want to get more information on our program, is there one that you can tell for the fans out there tuning in?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just baseball@liberty.edu. That's our baseball account. And we've got our director of operations, Daniel Brown, and Peyton Scarborough. They check that every day. And, that we'll get those emails for sure.
Couple more minutes here, Scott. Again, we could talk another hour about your love of baseball. And I want to know who taught you the game? Give me an idea when you were younger, and same thing you're instilling in your two sons now, but where did your love for baseball start?
My dad liked baseball. I had a twin brother, so that made it easy. You always had somebody to throw BP to you, and you always had somebody to play catch with, somebody to hit you ground balls. I mean, my brother and I mean, it wouldn't be this. I couldn't imagine growing up without him. So from the competitiveness to being able to train together, that's where that came from. No question. Our love for baseball, kind of built within each other.
Is there one big league game that you've been to, and maybe it centers around Baltimore and your love for the Orioles, that you can say, well, that was a really cool game, and maybe one that fans would remember if they're baseball fans as well?
Yeah, I've been to 2 playoff games. So I was at Turner Field when John Smoltz made his first appearance out of the bullpen. I'll never forget that. That was really cool. It was an extra inning game between the Mets and the Braves. The Orioles game that I'll remember the most was right after I had graduated from college. Went up there, watched the game, and Ripken hit a grand slam in that game. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget going with my kids and taking them to Camden Yards for the first time. That was an unbelievable moment for me, just to see them enjoy that. I've been to so many big league games. It's hard to really narrow it down. The games that I've gone to where some kids that I have coached have made their major league debut. I mean, just incredible, unforgettable. So been very, very fortunate.
And you mentioned that, again, you've had an effect on a lot of players making to the big league level. And when you're able to see that success, and again, it's a business up there, just like it is every pro level, but to see them see their childhood dreams fulfilled, and you have made, I know, a large part in some of those, but you would say probably a small part, but to see them make that level, how gratifying is that as a coach and as a mentor to these student athletes?
It's incredible. You watch them, I just had big leaguers on such a pedestal when I was growing up. Right or wrong, I did that, and I was enamored with Major League Baseball. And then it's real to look at a big league stadium and say, I coached that kid on the mound, or I coached that kid in the batter's box. And the neatest thing is to watch them after the game. You go down to that kind of like a holding area for families, after the game. And the neatest thing is to watch some of them who haven't seen their parents since they got called up. It's just been a phone call, and to watch mom and dad hug them and say, man, you made it. That's special.
Parting thought on Liberty baseball and the future of the program, where you see it. It's in great hands, and how excited you are to get this 2021 season started here as soon as the restrictions are pulled off.
I'm excited to see our kids. You know, they grow, you know, in so many ways, and I'm just excited to see where they take us. You know, what's next for them personally, what's next for us as a team. You know, I think that's the reward in all this. You know, when you get to sit, you know, in this office, you get to just watch these kids do things that, you know, maybe they thought they couldn't do, and to see what's next for, you know, for each individual guy and in this program. I mean, we would love to take the next step here, you know, and put ourselves in a position to be in a super regional and be 2 wins away from, you know, the College World Series. But God's got plans for all of us, and right now we're just trying to be who He created us to be in that moment.
All right, Scott, appreciate the time. Next time there's a staff BP, give me a text, okay?
All right. Hey, we got time for it this summer. We might have to do that.
Ready. All right, yeah. Scott, appreciate the time.
All right, brother. Thanks, man.